Hello, everyone. I don't know how I'm going to follow up a magic routine, but just to say thank you so much for staying to the very end. You know, you've saved me and David having to talk to an empty room, as if that was going to happen. So it's going to be a fireside chat. There's an opportunity to ask questions at the end, so do get the old grey matter whirring, and you can come up to the microphones for about the last third of our time and ask some questions to David. Very briefly, I'm Will Freeman. I'm one of those video games journalists, I'm afraid. But as I often say when I take to a stage, not here really to listen to me, you're here to listen to somebody much more interesting. Our guest, I guess to this crowd, he needs no introduction, so I will just welcome one of the founding teams and one of the original minds behind everything Unity, David Helgason. Oh, go on then.
Hey, thank you.
No worries.
And just thanks for sticking around. I know people are leaving soon.
Yeah, some of us have got flights to catch as well,
exactly.
So you're not the only ones.
So what's going to happen actually at the end is basically this wraps up and I'm running off, beeline. So, cheers.
So, on that note, I should dive into the questions, I guess. So, let's talk about before Unity, first of all.
Yeah.
What were your very first kind of feeling engaged and interested with technology and games, I guess?
Sure. No, like all other programmers, you know, I learned to program because I wanted to make games. I was 10 years old and I was typing in some, you know, basic scripts into my computer, my mother's computer. But it was like it was a Commodore book and it was a PC, so nothing worked.
Right.
The peaks and pokes didn't kind of go the right places.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so, you know, I was just programming since I was a little kid.
So it sounds like you didn't make a move from somebody interested to content into somebody creating. It seems straight away you're interested in doing more than consuming.
Yeah, but
games.
I dropped completely out of games. Like I just become like a regular programmer. I was doing like database stuff and things like that. Yeah, but I guess it was pretty unsatisfactory just to be working on kind of, you know, back-end systems and so on. So my old buddy from high school, we used to smoke weed together and program and listen to Pink Floyd.
Classic combination.
And go to raves. Nicholas Francis, one of the founders, he wanted to make games, and he sort of pulled me in. And then he had to somehow found this other German guy online.
Right.
And it was very amorphous, by the way. Like they had met on an Apple OpenGL mailing list and something. And they were kind of informally working together, and then I was supposed to work with Nicholas, and then somehow we were suddenly a team, and there was this engine that we were writing for ourselves.
Yeah. So this was about 2001?
Well, so they started coding on their respective engines like 2001, 2. They borrowed my apartment in 2002, in May 2, to kind of merge their code bases.
Right.
And then I joined as the third coder. Not quite a founder, they made me a founder later. It's like a sort of a, you know, badge of honor that they gave me after a few years in the basement. I joined in January of 3, which is sort of my starting date, but you can pick many starting dates, actually.
But at that time, this engine that they were working on, or these two engines that became one, was to make your own games, right? You guys were a game studio.
Yeah. We really, I mean, we had so many bad game ideas. First we wanted to make really big games. By the way, actually, this is actually silly. I don't think I've ever told this before. So our entire conception of the game industry was from Game Developer Magazine. Okay,
right.
So we had not been in the industry at all.
Yeah.
But it was like old magazines, like from the 90s. So like in there, like you could actually like kind of write to a games publisher, and if you had like a good idea, you might actually get funding. Which, by the way, was not a big thing in the 90s, but it actually did happen, like historically speaking, right? So we had this idea that we could just do that. So we had, like, I don't know, we wrote these budgets for these games, and it's like $1 million something, you know, and we wrote, I don't know, we were trying to reach out to publishers. It was completely ridiculous. So at some point we started realizing this is never going to happen, so we had to kind of make a game on our own.
Right, okay.
And then we picked a really small idea, and that still took us like more than a year.
Okay. And so that was using your own engine? And
yeah, I mean this weird proto-engine.
Right, okay.
Which, by the way, had several names.
Okay.
Crimson Engine, Kant, after the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Don't ask me why. And then, it became Unity. That's another story that never gets told. There was this. Is this being recorded and broadcast?
It looks like there's a camera.
Okay, let's assume it's going to be broadcast. There was this guy, this American guy, who was sort of a hanger around this project, and we were sort of brainstorming ideas, and he literally came up with this idea, or he suggested it, and then we were so like stupid that we didn't actually check the trademark registry.
Right.
Which turned out there was an actual trademark called Unity 3D Game Engine by some other company.
Right. Okay.
So when sometimes people ask us, how did you get such a great name? The answer is kind of first accidentally, and then we just freaking squatted. Eventually we won Google, right? So
right, yeah. So before Unity became Unity, your game studio, kind of Gooball is the famous final game that convinced you guys to move.
That was
on.
the smallest game we could come up with, design of. Yeah.
And that was your...
It was still too big for us, we almost killed ourselves on it.
And that was your only published game, so to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Before? Right.
So we worked on this game for a really long time, and it was actually had some nice aspects. I'm not even going to ask if anyone's played Gooball, because nobody in this room has played Gooball. You played Gooball?
When I first wrote about Unity in about 2009,
okay.
research.
I think you could probably download it still back then. I think the publisher has gone bust or something.
Yeah, later. So it's not still out there, Gooball?
I mean, it wouldn't work on a modern computer,
right,
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. Anyway, there's like one tiny low-res video on YouTube. But yeah, we made that game, and we bamboozled this publisher into giving us a minimum guarantee of $60,000. I have no idea how how he was sort of fooled into that.
Right.
Because he lost money on that game.
Okay. So this was the game that turned your kind of proto-engine into deciding to change from being a game developer to being an engine and tools company. So what?
It was a gradual process. So what happened first? We hired these. No, we did not hire. We had no money. Like there was just nothing. But there was these two artists we found who just graduated from design college, who were pretty good with Maya. And they were also kind of arrogant. I mean, they're friends. But they're quite arrogant guys. And we were three programmers and the two artists, and it was clear that they needed to sit down and actually put the stuff into the engine. We could not do all the work. And one of them was a really handy level designer as well.
Right.
So, but they would not touch the engine if it didn't work like Maya. So basically, we had to sit down with the keyboard controls and just make it feel like Maya.
Right.
Because otherwise, they were just out doing something else because they were not getting paid, right?
Okay.
So we had just to polish and polish and polish until they sort of disdainfully came in and sort of touched it, and it's okay.
And by then you were thinking that this was an engine to be released to the world?
No, but that sort of evolved, I guess. I mean, at some point, I think in 2004, we sort of realized that we kind of sucked at making games.
Okay.
It was before Gooball was finished, but it was clear that we're not going to be good at this.
Right.
And maybe, I don't know if we did enjoy it, actually. I really enjoyed writing camera control code and that stuff. It was really hard, though. But yeah, there was something that attracted us about the technology part, and I think we're just better at it. And
in terms of the way you sort of shaped that engine, what were you motivated by, I guess, in terms of what wasn't there, what justified needing a different engine?
Sure. I mean, first we just were there to help ourselves and these two, slightly arrogant, very, very talented artists. And then I think, we sort of got this idea, okay, first we could commercialize it. That's sort of a banal idea. But then, as tends to happen in these kind of basement apartments, where there's no fresh air, and we're just kind of been coding day and night for weeks or months on end. We started sort of philosophizing and thinking about, what it might mean. And Nicholas in particular, I think, but maybe all of us together, started sort of imagining and convincing each other that, sometimes tools change entire industries. And Nicholas, who had made maybe a little bit of music, but films before as well. Not successfully, by the way. A very unsuccessful indie filmmaker, as he would be the first to tell you.
Right. I think that's indie filmmaking, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it kind of sucked. All these movies were lost when I pushed a hard drive off a desk once.
Oh dear. The early history of Unity gone.
Jesus, yeah. No, also his entire life before Unity, wiped clean. But so So the idea was, these tools like, digital video and home studio, like the multi-track tape recorder, and that stuff had sort of changed, these mediums like rock music and filmmaking. And the idea was, you've heard, I've said this a number of times, that we decided, okay, let's try to change, actually just fucking change the game industry with a tool. Which of course we didn't, by the way. I say we tried, and we cannot claim we did, but we were definitely part of the changes that were happening because of app stores and a lot of other stuff. There's no.
Yeah, sure. And I really want to talk about that ambition more. But first of all, you mentioned kind of that early days and the kind of basement era. Anyone who was here for a keynote, which I imagine a lot of us might have seen an old black and white photograph of you guys then. So, and I just...
Which, by the way, is literally the only photograph that exists from that time. And it's black and white, which is sort of eerily fitting.
But there's, I think, a little interesting tale in how you date that photograph to do with pastries.
Oh, yeah, no, so...
And I guess it's a nice tale of the position...
Because we don't know when the photograph was taken, but I know the guy who took the photograph was the designer who designed the logo, the original Unity logo.
Right, okay.
Because there was a design studio next door, and they sort of helped us and hung out with us. And it was a Wednesday because there was these buns that you could get really, really cheap on Wednesdays from a particular bakery. So I would bicycle sort of by the bakery on the way to the work.
Right, okay. So it was, we know that was a Wednesday because once Unity was having to get the cheapest buns of the day.
And they were really big, as you can see on the photo.
So let's go back to that kind of ambition. It seems quite early on you guys were thinking not just about making an engine that would help make some games, but you had a vision about the impact that engine could have.
Yeah, well, so we came up with this, you could say harebrained idea that, we could change the industry and blah, 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 and, with the right tooling and, lower prices and simpler and accessing sort of the open platforms at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably remember as a game journalist, but back in 2005 when we launched Unity and the sort of previous years, PC gaming was basically dead.
I remember those stories.
Smartphones were not there, and everything was console games.
Yeah.
And these were super close back then. Now they're open. Now you can actually get on them.
Yeah.
But back then you couldn't. So what happened was that the entire game industry, all the game engines, everything was sort of focused on these, few teams making big games. We just went the other way, probably because of this idea that if you're going to democratize something, it's no use if there's no channel afterwards. Yeah. There's no use to have a cheap, easy, whatever tool if you cannot get the game sold, right?
Yeah, sure.
So we started with Mac for no good reason except we owned Macs. And
so that was the inspiration for your first platform?
It was just like that. It was the computers we had. And then PC and web, actually, which came early as a really open platform that had some promise, there was some web gaming going on. I'm sure some old people in the room did web games at one point. That led us to the web player and that whole... I'm not going to call it a debacle. It's kind of cool. It served a good purpose, but I mean, oh my God, it has introduced a lot of pain in a lot of people's lives. 500 million installs later.
That's okay, half a billion.
And the browsers are discontinuing the APIs, right? So you cannot, I mean, now it's WebGL and it's going to be great. It is great. But oh my God, there's a lot of freaking pain.
And so that word democratization, that was there from the very...
basically the basement years, Then we forgot about it, actually. Not out of any malice. In fact, I think we stuck. I mean, we never betrayed it as an idea, but we were just in such a survival mode. And when you're the Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever, when you're not really full, and you're not really sleeping, you don't think about democratization. But fortunately, we sort of we didn't veer from it. We just kind of continued that idea. Then 2009, many years later, when the iPhone is out and we're actually growing and we're 30 people and we're taking investment capital from a really good investment firm to help us kind of actually not really grow the company because we were growing by ourselves, but stabilize it and make it so that it wouldn't go freaking bankrupt any day. That is actually only then, I think, we really got back to the old idea. And we sort of could look from the ground, where we're just making sure we were not stumbling over any stones or anything. And we look at the horizon and we're like, okay, why did we start this company again? And then we got back to this idea, okay, oh yeah, it's to democratize game development, and what does that then mean? And that then triggered the sort of the asset store and the free version and all that stuff.
Right.
Which had been sort of in a way stagnant. Like we've just been sort of trying to keep the company alive and keep this engine sort of running.
Sure. And so you had this kind of vision for, I guess, changing the games industry, but was that, I'd just be interesting to hear about how ambitious you felt. Like, was that your sole goal?
No, we were exactly that ambitious. It was that kind of complete level of insanity.
Yeah.
And like, I can really prove it because, for instance, besides the sort of hyperbolic stuff we were saying back then, some of which was caught on camera, we ran our first developer conference, Unite conference,
right, okay.
in San Francisco in 2007, and we had 32 sold tickets, and we had like 70 people at the sort of through the door during the 3 days of full content.
Yeah, I mean that's ambitious,
for
right?
32 people.
Yeah.
And their friends and a couple of, whatever. It was pretty cool. Somebody flew in, it was in San Francisco, in a beautiful location. Somebody flew in from Japan, somebody flew in from Israel, a couple of people from Europe. It was astonishing.
And how many staff were we talking at Unite 07, Unite 1?
The entire company was 8 people. Uh-huh. It opened on October 10th, my birthday. And it was 8 people, and eight employees and 2 interns.
Wow.
Yep.
And I guess that demonstrates ambition, a 3-day track for that number of people.
You can actually see some of this online on YouTube. Yeah. It's really bad. No, actually, there's one really great talk done by the 14-year-old intern, Forrest Johnson. Forrest Johnson talks particles. I don't know if it's still really valid, the techniques he describes, but they were really clever for their time.
Yeah.
He really had kind of come up with brilliant new ideas of doing special effects with particles.
And I guess that demonstrates how far democratization went even then across, how many conferences have a 14-year-old doing a memorable talk like that?
I don't know, I've been to all of them, but he was living in my apartment at the time.
And I guess going back to that ambition and motivation, you were thinking about making an impact on the games industry, so I guess that had to mean you were hoping to grow to what we have now?
No.
No?
No, not really. I mean, not in the sense that I have a complete lack of personal ambition myself.
Yeah, see, that's interesting considering what you've helped achieve. You're not ambitious?
No, not at all.
Right, okay.
And in the same way, I think we were very ambitious on behalf of what Unity could do.
Right.
But we were not, it was actually later that we realized that we had to grow as a company in order to become really competitive and so on. So and I remember there was actually a lot of discussions amongst us founders in the beginning, why would we need, sorry Joachim if you're in the room, but I remember you saying at one point, I think the number was I cannot imagine a world where we need more than 20 programmers.
Yeah.
Maybe I get the number wrong, but it was very low. But at some point we sort of realized that technology companies have to grow and have to get scale in order to remain competitive, and that's sort of the track we decided to go down, and it's been fantastic.
But although you wouldn't call yourself ambitious, you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
And was that ever
before Unity, I was starting a few companies that were completely like shitty little insignificant companies. But no, I had a boss in the first sort of good job I had in programming, and it was a 10-person company, and he was the sweetest guy. He was my age. He was really clever. And he had this office, and he had his own music in the office, and it was just really his space.
Right, okay.
And I looked at him I want to be that guy. That's awesome, because he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
Which is a complete misunderstanding of the situation, because the CEO, is as I then sort of evolved into, and until a year and a half ago, is the least free person at any given stage, because the CEO is only allowed ever to do the exact optimum thing at the given time.
Right, okay.
And then you have to apply yourself. Of course, you don't know what that is, but you have to apply yourself. You have to figure out the best thing you can do, and then you have to do it. You're never allowed to do anything but that. It kind of sucks.
So that boss and him having his music on, was that, I guess, as ever, my planned questioning has gone a little out of order, but I guess I don't, Unity is a company that's had to take things seriously and work hard to get where it is, but I don't think you're considered a particularly corporate company. There's a personality to Unity. Was that?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's connected to that boss having his own music on, and just
I don't know,
how planned that was, or if you can't plan something
maybe
like that.
Maybe it's just 3 programmers that never really had work. I mean, like, I said I had this job, but I was really a freelancer.
Right.
So of the three of us, we'd never actually held a job before. So I don't, like, there was no idea in our head how a company should be, I think.
Right, and I'm just wondering if there's people in the crowd now, in the audience, at that beginning stage of, deciding how to present their company. It seems like just being natural, not, it seems you can't force that side of things.
I don't know. I think, and like many of you are actually leading your studios and companies, right? So like there's a lot of like kind of entrepreneurs in the room, I think. And yeah, I think you just know that like it's a very personal thing. So you just you are so much yourself in that,
right,
and and people have different personalities, and that's great.
Yeah, sure.
And there's actually it's been lovely to see like a lot of different personalities build companies and do things, and yeah, the companies also become different based on these personalities, and there's no right way of doing it.
Right. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's a few wrong ways of doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And obviously, it's connected to democratization and accessibility, but the word unity is at the end of the word community. Like, how I guess
that was in the original branding. It was really silly though.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Like, it was like a different color, community, but it's like, yeah.
But that's I think the success of Unity in part is because of that community and because of the kind of enthusiasm of the users and Unity user groups and stuff, right? It's almost been taken out.
It's wonderful.
Taken out of Unity's
and we didn't invent the idea of building a business around a community or a community around the business, but I think it's been critical, and like that's sort of just coming together. Also, just the idea of starting to bring the community together, even when it was really, really small, was really valuable and important.
Yeah.
Plus, just really nice. Like, it's so sweet. There's so many wonderful people.
And was that part of that original vision, the idea that it was a community and an engine together?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, because that's the original branding of the launch website, which I believe can be found on Internet Archive. I think it has that red and orange community sign, which is really butt ugly, but kind of cute, yeah. Okay. We had also stolen the ATI car. It's like a car model that ATI had put out, and we just stole it and rendered it and put it up there. It's very naively construed.
And while we're kind of on the topic of kind of entrepreneurship and kind of building your company, your engine, your game studio, a lot of the time you hear, it's kind of almost a cliche, you hear entrepreneurs talk about kind of risk and embracing risk and failure. Is that something?
I don't know. No, I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just so blind. No, I don't know actually. I never felt we took any real risk.
Yeah.
Because we're always just searching for the safest thing to do, and yeah, even when we went free, back in 2009 with the first sort of free edition, where we took the previous sort of hobbyist version, which is not, it was $200, and we made it free. Even at that time, the $200 cheap version was like already down to like 10% of the revenue. So it seemed like relatively safe to give that away. And yeah, so I don't know.
So you guys have almost been, in terms of I guess I'm thinking of our audience, in terms of a growing technology company, being careful and thoughtful rather than risk-taking has been your way.
And also, like, we raised venture capital from these investors. That can be a bit scary, and you got to be very careful around them. But the risk was, like, the alternative risk was that we just had no cash in the bank, and any little kind of rock on the ground on the road could sort of tip us over. I remember, like, we were paying salaries late when we were 15, 17 people, and it's really scary.
Yeah. So I guess, is there, and I guess there's so much, but if we've got a kind of youthful developer starting a studio or a youthful technology company, or someone out here planning on building an engine,
I'm sure there's somebody in the room.
What would your...
Good luck with that. It's really fun, but really hard.
What would your advice be to, if, someone said, I like golden rules are obviously ridiculous, really, but...
Yeah, but there's a few things. Like, one thing is that, all the good companies in the world now are built by programmers. So since many of you are programmers, that's pretty good. There's no, I don't think anyone is really, I don't know. Yeah, there's some business people around starting stuff, but they can't. So that's the first thing, just, be really freaking good at something and, working hard. I don't have data on this, I really don't, but we started in an incubator. The first office after the basement was an incubator. There was like 30 companies there. And, they were working fairly hard every day. Like, people were leaving at 6, 7 in the evening, And then there was like one company that stayed until like 11, sometimes midnight, every night. And they actually went bankrupt later, but they revived and they're okay. And then there was like one group that just never fucking went home. We were just always absolutely there. We would sleep on the benches, we'd be there in the morning, it was just insane. And that was Unity. So I mean, like programmers working really hard on big kind of problems and sort of challenging themselves, that's how everything is built. All the best games, all the best products, yeah. It's not that hard, actually. No, the ability of small teams to build like really big value in a super scalable way, whether it's the next Angry Birds or the next Unity, is just very, very concrete and like you don't have to have any cash to get started.
Sure.
Just just borrow a little bit of money. Don't pay the taxes for a couple of years. Do pay it back though; it's illegal otherwise. But they give you a leeway, like they don't actually put you in jail right away. But yeah, I mean that kind of stuff. You can really just go there.
Yeah, and so programmers, hard
and
work,
tools, and whether it's Unity or like Amazon Cloud or whatever, like the tools are just ridiculous these days.
But any other of those golden pieces of advice?
No. Well, I mean, yeah, like. No, I think there's a nice there's a nice balance to be found between being kind of ambitious on the high level and sort of in theory, and then very just sort of simple and concrete and because you just got to get something in people's hands and that they like. Paul Graham was this kind of inventor of the incubator. He just has this simple sentence like make something people want, which is just very wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyone who starts with a business idea that has like several stages and then this is going to happen and then this can happen afterwards just never works. This is just always like the shortest path to having something that people will pay for is basically every good company starts like that.
Okay. And on the subject of advice, if we were able to produce a time machine now, I'm sure a platform Unity will support in the future. Like if we could, at the risk of creating a rupture in the space-time continuum, have David Helgason in 2004 at the beginning of Unity meet Helgason 2016.
Okay.
What advice would you now give to...
Okay,
if
that's
you
hard.
Give any.
So there's two answers.
Yeah.
One is I wouldn't dare, because you look back at the sort of the sequence of events that needed to happen for Unity to get just here, and we're not done. Like we're still working hard. There's many problems. There's bugs. There's all kinds of shit. But to here at least. By the way, I think we're closing in on 1,000 people in the company, which is insane. So to get here, the sequence of luck that we were not able to recognize while it happened is just so insane. It's like 30 like coin flips in a row.
Right. Okay.
Right, and the butterfly effect and all that stuff. Any time machine will, whatever you do, you go to Greenland, you make an igloo.
Yeah.
It's still gonna fuck up Unity 2016. No, absolutely. There's just no. It's impossible. No, the other way of saying it is that. I've had a lot of business advisors and wise people helping me, and the problem is usually that they're so much smarter than you that whatever they tell you don't understand. So I spent a lot of time listening to really smart people who absolutely wasted their time, and I'm sorry to whoever. I wasted a lot of people's time by trying to listen to their advice. But the one type of advice that always worked for me, and I always try to give to other people, is if you're doing something and you sort of believe in it yourself, you're also the person closest to that topic. So if you believe in it, it's probably true. Then the best advice is just to do more of it and faster and harder and kind of just that direction. You're pointed in, just run. Which is, by the way, not always good advice. But on average, when the person getting the advice is smart and knowledgeable and has been sort of thinking about the problem for a little bit more than 5 minutes, it's always it's very often the good advice. And that's like the people who just told Unity just fucking do more of it. It's I'm really indebted to them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded to the future there. We've had the traditional Unity roadmap, so hopefully these guys were there and have learnt about features that are coming and so on. But more broadly, and I understand, you're not CEO anymore, but where do you see Unity going just in terms of more generally? What are your hopes or plans for the future of Unity?
No, so I'm still on the board, so I get to spend time with all the leadership, and
I don't think you'll ever tear yourself away from Unity.
No, I don't know. It's hard because it's such a wonderful group of people, both inside the company and outside. So there's no way of leaving. But I didn't try leaving, but if I tried, I would fail. But I think what I can say is that it's mostly just more of the same. Like we have a pretty strong belief that this is the right path for us. Sort of harder, faster, better-ish. I think. I talked to somebody at Apple once who said this wonderful thing, which is, people think Apple is really strategic and doing all these very clever things, but it's just tactics. It's just like decision after decision after decision where you follow sort of a general mission statement or like a general big idea, and you sort of just go down that track. And a lot of little turns. And some are a little bit wrong, and then you sort of go a little bit back. But no, I think you'll see more of that. There's no sort of major change coming. We thought it would come. I remember for years in the old years, in the old times, we thought, eventually we'll run out of the game industry and we'll go and we'll do like these other industries. And we dabbled in them, and we did some stuff in like gambling and military and so on. And it just our heart wasn't in it, and we mostly just went back to games.
Right.
And the old vision statement, where we just sort of virtually at least painted on the wall in the old basement, democratize game development, which when we put the three words together, it's almost like an order, like democratize game development. You must. The weird thing is whenever we did something that was not like under that headline, it didn't work.
Right, okay.
It's really weird. I've gone back and looked at a lot of projects. Every single project that somehow didn't like fit inside that failed.
Right, okay.
Actually, it's so uncanny, I don't even know why. Which is why I think we mostly want to continue on that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, you keep
knows?
an open mind. But, and by the way, actually with virtual reality and augmented reality, there's a much bigger pull towards non-games for us because there will be games, but there will also be non-games, and they need so much the same technology. I don't think will change the concept of the company, but that's sort of something that draws us in a good way. I think it's really cool.
So it's amazing that original vision still holds water, really, the basement and the buns.
And some wonderfully smart person that I don't know who was said once that you can actually measure the value of a vision statement, not in how cool it sounds and how many fancy buzzwords it has, but by the quality of decisions it helps you make.
Right.
And it's really like I said, like when we betrayed it because we're just not thinking clearly, every time it fucking failed.
Okay. And you mentioned then your kind of your heart being in it. I guess that is the most important thing, right? Being invested in it in that way. Sure.
No, exactly. And sort of, and spending enough energy, emotional energy as well as mental on things so that you really kind of, become a subject matter expert in a really kind of intuitive way. And that, then you get a whole bunch of people in the company who are very intuitive and have a very strong sort of sense of what's right or wrong. And, when you have a crazy group of people, almost 1,000 unbelievably smart people, with very strong beliefs and intuitions, just magic happens.
Yeah, sure.
It's really wonderful.
So the next question, I almost feel we could fill an hour on because I want to ask you what you're most... It's all right, you're going to get that plane.
I was going to say, we can take questions as well, right?
Yeah, I'm keeping my eye on the clock. This is my last one before the extras, but we're not going to take an hour on this one. But what are you most proud of when you look back at Unity? Now, I know you could name hundreds of games and people that have done well, but is there anything you can pick that you feel... No, okay, let's drop the word most, but what are you proud of?
Okay, so I'm really proud of Unity having become this common language for the game industry, like a real... It's not a standard, maybe, really, but it's sort of so close to a it's a sort of a common language that helps people work together and do stuff, and inside studios, across studios. So one way to frame it, I think, is that Unity is not really a company. It's like a federation of tens of thousands of companies and like hundreds of thousands of people and their careers.
Right.
And sort of the responsibility for being sort of at the center of that, and obviously not controlling it, but sort of, at least having some responsibility for not breaking it. I think it's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
And just, it's entirely insane to look back and see that that's actually kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And Unity became this nomen omen, like this weird kind of, weird signifier. The original name was just because it combined the media, like graphic, like textures and audio and this stuff. But that it sort of went this much further.
So that was it. Engine being a unity of things you can do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then it just went. That meaning sort of weirdly extended, and continues to extend in interesting ways.
So not my last question, because I've got dozens more, but I think I should give the audience an opportunity. But my last question before that is, how you balance with Unity or with a technology company? There's kind of providing what's needed. And then at the same time, there's kind of leading, kind of deciding what's needed. Like, how have you balanced that with
I don't
Unity?
think we've done it really well. Not always. No, it's there is this balance. Like you wanna follow your own intuition and your own kind of ideas for vision of how the world might be, and then you want to listen. And it's sort of of course there's not. It's complicated, but no, I think we've not been good enough at listening. We're getting better. And some of the ideas we had were great, and some of the ideas we had were terrible.
Right.
Like I don't want to out people because a lot of people worked on these subsystems, but there are subsystems in Unity that were made by very clever people without really asking hard questions about how they were actually be used, and subsystems that are just like practically unusable for that reason. And then there are other subsystems that are just utterly wonderful and just. When you work with them, it's so natural and obvious, and you can sort of guess the APIs and so on. And I think we're better now though. And we've kept this, I think, largely porous barrier between inside and outside. I hope many of you have the experience that people inside the company that you can sort of ping once in a while. They get busy and don't answer sometimes, but that's because, reasons. But there's a there's a porosity to the company, which helps on the positive side. And some of these systems, when you use them, you feel like you get so frustrated that it feels like this must be an arrogant company doing such stupid stuff. And that's, I hope it's not true, but it can feel like that, so sorry when it does, really. On the other hand, it's sort of the whole more or less works.
Right.
Which is, of course, awesome.
Yeah. And so now is your opportunity to ask some questions. I'm hoping somebody will break the ice to get everybody queuing up to microphones.
There's microphones.
Oh, I thought that was... So if you've got a question to ask, if you just go and step to one of the microphones, if someone like me can sit on stage without feeling too meek, and I do feel meek, then you can walk up to a microphone. Yes, brilliant. Your question, sir.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the conference. Thank you for the great product. This conference has really crystallized that it's a games-focused product, this Unity. And unfortunately, we're not doing games. Should I be afraid?
No, you should not. But that's because we have such a strong commitment to being a platform and a really multi-platform platform. And a generic platform that we'll not get in your way. Like we're not force. A game button or whatever products you're building, like there's no forced ads for games in them. Like it's a flexible product. So no, you should not be afraid. I remember it's a difficult question because people have come around and asked these questions over the years. And there was years when we actually had whole teams to service you guys or people like you. And frankly, I think the answer is that, the general tech team should be hopefully good enough for you and so on. And the needs of people building kind of, visualization products or training products and simulation products and whatever amazing things are so overlapping with the game developers' needs that you should not be afraid. That's a commitment. If you run into trouble, just absolutely ping me on Twitter and complain. And I cannot fix it right away, but we listen to it. But no, it's not a problem, and I hope you feel that and believe it. But if it ever becomes, let us know.
Sounds good.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
And thank you for being the person that got other people to also stand up. I think you were next, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Hi there. So I guess this is a bit of a retrospective question. The way that asset stores changed the way that developers and people who can create content interact with other developers and other people create content. you said that there was an inspiration perhaps from the App Store, or at least that had maybe coincided with the creation of the Asset Store. So I was just wondering, one, was that a surprise to you when it all kind of kicked off and it was like, great, this works? And then two, are there any future trends that you think maybe are going to change the way the Asset Store and app stores in general work?
Oh, so the Asset Store is obviously not an asset store, an app store. It was designed like the App Store, which probably was a bit of a mistake, honestly. Like it was sort of done, being a bit hard on them, but they're also not with the company anymore. Not because we fired them, they're just diffused. They were built by people who didn't really love it, or they didn't get it. So they built it sort of a bit mechanically, like sort of, you know, what model then to follow? Well, let's follow the App Store model. That sort of seems like a reasonable model to make a store in. And it's not bad, but it's sort of not been, I don't know, I don't think it's perfect still. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's very far from perfect, obviously, but it's still wonderful. I believed in it very firmly. I was completely convinced that it would be successful. I remember when we launched it at Unite in Montreal in 2010 on stage, and there was this complete kind of disappointment in the room, and people didn't know what we were going to say. Then we launched the Asset Store. And there was just this kind of sadness in people's eyes, and it's like, oh, this weird money thing, and it's like, you're gonna like microtransact us now, and I remember even really good friends, they were kind of complaining to me afterwards at the party, and I was so heartbroken because I knew they were wrong, but it was still, you know, hard to disappoint them. And then it took probably half a year, no, at least a year actually, before the business was really working, just because, you know, first you needed assets, and then you needed visitors, and they had to sort of meet. And even the initial group that curated the store, they didn't get it either. It was only like the second generation team that really loved it and cared about it. But yeah, now it's amazing, of course. And will it change in the future? I darn hope so. We have some ideas, but it's a lot of work and there's a lot of projects. But no, there are some pretty cool ideas where it needs to go, frankly.
Cool. Thank you.
Great.
Cheers. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, let's keep it moving around in a circle. I'll feel more relaxed if I feel I'm playing a board game. So yeah, if you want to go for it.
Hey there. It's my very first time at Unite, so thanks very much. This is
Welcome.
amazing. Back where I'm from in Northern Ireland, in terms of games education, there really isn't anything much at all that's really getting people into this part of the industry. What I wanted to ask was, as Unity is getting more adopted, what have your experiences been with education and being linked with academia in terms of actually helping people who want to get into video games, aside from obviously picking them up themselves, but actually get into it in a more academic setting?
Yeah, so initially I remember in the early sort of, you know, we made some business plans, or sort of, you know, so we were writing notes for ourselves, what we thought would happen with the company just when we were launching. And we had this very naive idea that the first people to adopt Unity would be the educational, like the educators and the schools. And like, it was completely naive. First of all, they had very few Macs, and we were Mac-based for a number of years. But second, they would only adopt stuff that was like successful in the industry first. They wouldn't sort of go, yeah. So that took a while, but Unity is gigantic in education, and it's really cool because I think it's an awesome tool for games education. You know, it's simple enough that you can sort of get into it, but it's powerful enough that you can actually go and like, you know, fulfill your career with it. Which is, yeah, so that's great. We've made different stabs at trying to support the educational sector. And we've done a few things around the world. In some of our Asian markets, we've actually done very hands-on things, published our own books and so on. In the West, it's been, you know, not as, well, I mean, it took a longer time before we started. Now we have a pretty good program, at least for parts of the world, with curriculum that we share and so on. We don't engage that much like directly with the schools. There's just too many of them, and it doesn't really scale well. And yeah, like I think we could be better at it, frankly. But at least I know that Unity helps some people, some students, which is awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've got time for questions, so don't worry, you'll definitely get your chance, and maybe even a couple more. Yeah, fire away.
Okay, well, first, thanks for democratizing making games, right? This is why most of us are here anyways. With a whole new set of sectors getting interested in using Unity, architecture, engineering, medical, whatever.
Yeah.
And the need for, and the movies, as we've seen. I see the Jungle Book. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's really cool stuff, yeah.
And so with the obvious need for those sectors to also have their own tools developed into the Unity toolchain, how do you see that challenge in the future without losing the focus on the games?
Yeah. It's, sorry, did I cut you off or?
Yeah, that's the end.
Sure, yeah. No, so like I said earlier, like it's sort of we're focusing on making the platform really flexible and really broad and really kind of, pluggable. I mean, you can write your own tools and all that. So that's the goal. I think, at least in the near term, you're not going to find us like building special features or even special sales teams for these industries. I think and hope that Unity can work for them. I mean, for some of them, there's many different industries, and I don't even know all of them. But for some of them, like you would have fewer people, but more willingness to pay. So in order to really support them, we would actually have to charge a lot more from fewer people, which is just really kind of anathema to us. Like it's hard to kind of wrap our brain around that. We do it for real money gambling. That's just like, it's a very simple like term. Like if your application deals like with real money gambling, you have to kind of pay us more money, basically, to be blunt. And that's worked out fine, and there's a lot of gambling companies using us, and that's great. And we do give them support, a bit extra. But for other industries, we largely just kind of sell it as it is. Which means for many of them, and there's many interesting verticals, for many of them we make very little money per industry, and not enough to really go and do a lot of stuff. So we sort of rely largely on Unity just being that flexible. Which is not a great answer, but as I promised earlier, like we're not going to make it so that it becomes impossible. We're not like going to cut you off. And there's one personal reason why I like the other industries, which is that the game industry is a very fickle mistress. I don't know. Right? I mean, like one day you're in, one day next day you're out. Your studio fails because of reasons. So we know a lot of very good people who need a bit of stability for a few years. Maybe they're having babies or whatever, who go and work for these companies. Stable salaries, maybe even higher salaries, and so on. That's great. And the fact that they can sort of bring their Unity skills with them between these industries is wonderful. So that's all on the plus side. Over time, will we develop sort of more specialized things? Maybe, we'll see. But we've tried before, and it really wasn't fun. And I don't think we helped these industries either, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
Cheers.
thank you. So the most patient person standing up in the room.
Hi. Thanks for sharing the early stage of the company. I really enjoyed the story. One of my questions, I'm very interested to know, how did you overcome the fear of failure in the beginning? How did you really, you don't know at the beginning what is the outcome of the company, of the project. How do you know, okay, I have to invest in this, I have to keep going in this is the right things. And obviously you guys were all talented at the beginning. How do you choose, risk versus, safe job?
So we hadn't really had much jobs. Like we were also, like two of us were freelancers, and Joachim, who's our unbelievably smart CTO and the cleverest of us, he just came out of high school basically. So I don't know, for programmers at least, there's pretty good job safety in the world. There's just that's not, it's like following that path. Yes, maybe over your lifetime you'll have lower income, if you don't start on your rising salary escalator. So there was some risk there, but I don't really think we thought about, I know we didn't think about it. And what's the risk then? I mean, you lose a couple of years. So we started out on this project, and it was always like we were never like we're going to do this for 10 years. It was always like, let's continue another year, half a year. Let's see, can we get the game done? And okay, we couldn't. Okay, let's go another half year, a year, and okay, there's some traction, not traction business, but traction as it's sort of working. And then we fell in love with the engine, and the engine sort of pulled us along. And even after we launched, in 2005, we still kind of walked in the desert for 2-3 years afterwards, where we're basically not paying ourselves salaries for the first 6 years or something ridiculous. So yeah, it's, I don't know, the risk reward sort of schism isn't really, it doesn't fit with how it felt, I think.
So was no fear at all in the beginning?
Yeah, but there was also nothing to fear. Like one of us actually had a child in the very early days, but we lived in Denmark. Government healthcare. You can go on unemployment benefits if things really hit the wall. Like it's not fun. They don't treat you that nice, but they will give you like a little bit of money, so you can feed the baby at least, right? So yeah, again, like there's not that much risk in that sense. If you live in a more free market economy, maybe it's a bit risky. Like if it's sort of irresponsible to go and have a baby and know that if the baby gets sick, you can actually not afford to pay. So that's something I would of course respect, but that just wasn't our case.
Right. Thank you.
No, cheers, of course.
Thank you. We may have, does anyone want to come up to the mic to ask? We can get one last quick one. What an entrance. Fashionably late. Go for it.
Thanks for a great conference.
Thanks.
Unity as a product is being used for developing games, but also for making animations in the industry and also research. Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a use for Unity that absolutely surprised you, that you didn't see coming?
Oh, like tons.
Good question.
Like every month we would see something really strange. There was like I'm gonna butcher the story, and you're probably in here, so like tell me actually don't tell me right now if it's wrong, but tell me later. Tell me on Twitter. But there was like some researcher that was doing a dog AI that like you could interact with, and there was like a wall, and the dog would sort of be inside the wall, and I don't know what actually the project was, but it was pretty cool. Maybe it was an art project, but I think it was research for something. So like stuff like that is completely wacky, and where you're like, why did they use Unity? Obviously no particular reason except it was just there and easy and cheap. Yeah, I don't know, like really, really unusual stuff. We've seen Unity in car dashboards, not in live cars, but in sort of pre-production. Somebody was making like a little kind of TV streaming box with Unity as the shell. I don't know if that actually ever launched, but we've seen a lot of weird stuff. And one of it was always my hobby, like just to sort of find out about these things, just because it tickles the fancy. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. A great question. So we are pretty much at the end, and actually the timing worked out quite well. I'll pretend I planned that meticulously. So I guess just to say, thank you for listening, and thank you so much for David for coming and enduring all our questions.
Well, thanks for the questions and thanks for the chat. I'll just one thing. I'm going to rush to the airport, so please sorry if I don't actually get to give you a hug and say hi. You can reach me on email and Twitter and everything, of course. And just finally, it's awesome to be part of this community, and it's awesome that you still come here to these conferences. And I hope you learned a bunch of stuff from the other sessions, not from this one, obviously, and made some new friends and found new people to work with, whether it's little projects or being hired by big companies or whatever you do. Maybe some of you will join Unity. If you do, I just wish you luck in the meticulous and tough interview process, and I look forward to meeting you on the inside. And just enjoy the rest of your stay in Amsterdam. Thank you so much for coming. Cheers.